everyone. My name is Selvage, and I am one of the administrators with Gracefully Blessed Women. I met Andrea years ago, before Facebook was a big thing. We met in a very old chat room, and I just wanted to jump on here and tell you all a little bit about myself. I was not raised in a religious or Christian home. Both of my parents were raised different religions. So we went to church like on Easter and Christmas Eve, and that was about it. But in the 6th grade, I started attending church regularly with my older brother, who was friends with the pastor of the church's oldest son. So his wife would pick up my brother and I up and take us to church. I attended many church functions, like camps, and they had what they called lock-ins at the church on the weekends and stuff, where we would basically be locked in the church. Pretty much everybody at the church knew that my family was friends with the pastor's family, and so like I remember during one of the lock-ins, the gal that was there, she had forgot her boombox and some music at her house, and so she gave me her keys and had me go get it. But nobody was allowed to go with me because we were technically supposed to be locked in. But I've always had a desire to help people, and I had that even before I became a Christian, before I started going to church. I remember being like 4 or 5 years old and watching Rescue 911 and telling my parents that's what I want to do. And it pretty much never changed. And in high school, I was told I had to have a backup plan. And so I looked at becoming a clinical psychologist for adolescents, but my heart just wasn't in it. I did a campus visit at a Christian college for a week, talked to the professor in charge of the psychology department, sat in a bunch of different classrooms, but my heart just wasn't there. I remember when I was about 6 years old, on Christmas Eve, we lived just outside of Washington, D.C. My dad was working with NASA, and I was in my room, supposed to be sleeping. My parents were watching the news, and they started talking about the homeless people in D.C. I came out of my room and I told my parents, can't we do something for them? At midnight on Christmas Eve, my mother and I, by ourselves, went into DC and took blankets and some fruit, like apples and oranges and stuff that we bought at the store, to the homeless people and gave them out. And there was one gal that really touched me because she had just a sheet. That was it. Not a blanket, just a thin sheet, like from the hospital. And would not take anything from us, because she said there was others that didn't have any, and they needed it more than she did. In junior high, I took a missions trip with the church to San Francisco. We stayed in the Tenderloin district, which is the heart of San Francisco. There were prostitutes and drug deals going by right outside the building that we were staying in at night. And one day I was working at the thrift store that the Tenderloin Center that we stayed at ran, and this guy was talking to a friend of mine, and I had a really uneasy feeling. I just wanted to get my friend away from him. And I didn't know why, because I was always very friendly with people. I was like one of the first people that would go up and talk to a stranger. But this guy just didn't seem right to me. He seemed friendly and all, but just something about him seemed off. And I got my friend away from him, and I talked to one of the gals that ran the thrift store, and she told me that I had what was called the gift of discernment. It's one of the gifts of in the Bible, the gifts of the Spirit, and basically it means that my soul is very sensitive to that of others. And the way she explained it to me was that this guy had a very sexual spirit, and he was a known child molester. And so she told me to talk to my associate youth pastor about it, because he had the same thing, and I did. And I have always followed my gut with that. Um, After years of emotional abuse and a very traumatic event that happened in high school, I turned away from God and stayed away from for years. Ended up moving from Colorado to Montana in 2001. And in Montana, they call it Big Sky Country, and it is. It's beautiful up there. I ended up giving my life back to God. And then in 2003, moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, and was rebaptized in the church here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and gave my heart and my soul back to God, and have followed His will for my life since then. I went to school, got my paramedic license, and became a paramedic with AMR. Worked years in the field and loved every minute of it. I don't know if you can see all my badges hanging up here. I have since had to retire due to medical problems. While I was working one day, basically, I went into a heart rhythm called SVT. We were just sitting in a parking lot. We were not on a call or nothing. SVT is a very extremely high and dangerous heart rate, usually over 150 to 200 beats a minute, and it happens for no reason at all. Like I said, we were just sitting in a parking lot. We weren't doing anything strenuous. Come to find out that I had had a ton of chemotherapy in the past for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which I was diagnosed with at 21, and the chemotherapy had damaged my heart because they basically figured that I was young and healthy, and so they didn't test my heart before doing all the chemotherapy. Yeah, that's been a battle with that. But that's not the only medical battle I've had since. I've also developed something called pseudotumor cerebral, which is where the fluid level around my brain, the cerebral spinal fluid, is too high. I had a VP shunt put in, which is a tube that goes from the brain all the way down to the abdomen to drain excess fluid. One of the incisions became infected while I was at rehab because the wound care at the rehab refused to take care of it and treat it. So they had to remove the tube. So I deal with massive migraines and stuff pretty constantly, and it sucks. But in 2011, while I was working one day, my left leg gave out completely. I couldn't walk. And after about 8 months, almost a year of testing, I was diagnosed with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Most people who are diagnosed with it die within 2 to 5 years of the onset of symptoms, with a lot of them not even making it 18 months past. So I'm living proof that God works miracles every day. I'm still here, obviously, 9 years later, and still kicking. And I thank God for every day that I wake up, because every day we have on this earth is a miracle, and every day, I believe, is another day for us to show God's light to others. Even though I'm no longer working right now, I still find ways to help people. And with gracefully blessed women, that is my goal, to help other women as much as I can. Thank you for your time, and God bless.